Is Duolingo a good app to learn languages, or is it a complete waste of time? Let's find out. Hello number ones and welcome to Metatron's Academy, the channel where we learn how to learn languages in the most fun and effective way possible. And whether you're picking up a new language for business, for university or for personal pleasure, you have heard of Duolingo. That is because as of 2022 statistics, Duolingo has got over 500 million users. And here comes the question, is it worth it? Of course, I'd like to underline that the video is not sponsored, just putting it out there. So personally, I've tried using Duolingo for about 4 months before making this video. That's because, of course, I wanted to give you an unbiased opinion, but most importantly, an informed one. The first two questions on this video being, why should you believe me and what languages have I even tried to learn on this thing? To answer the first one, don't want to waste your time, link in the description, I suppose. As for the second questions, I tried using the app for Japanese, for Mandarin Chinese, and then my wife tried using it for Italian, and I sort of checked it to see if the Italian she was learning was actually, real. I'm a native Italian speaker, by the way. Now, in order to make a full-on professional review, there are a few aspects that we need to consider that sort of go beyond my own personal experience of that of my wife. Namely, how's the grammar, pronunciation, sentence structure, mistakes and corrections thereof, and vocabulary retention. The first thing I'd like to put out there right off the bat is, if your goal is to learn a language and become fluent with it, you are never going to do it with Duolingo alone. In the sense that if you are talking to someone and they tell you, hey, I've been learning Mandarin, I've been learning French, and you ask them, oh, how are you studying? What do you do? And they tell you, oh, I just do Duolingo. I think you can just end that conversation there. They're never going to learn French, Mandarin, or what have you, just using Duolingo. Of course, another important point is the fact that the app is, well, fun. So if they're having a great time using it, then, let them have fun. But if people believe that putting 4,000 or 5,000 hours, as some users have, into Duolingo will bring them to fluency in a language, they're deluding themselves. Although that is not because the app is faulty or it doesn't work, it's simply because that's not something you can reach with an app. So what can you reach with this app and is even worth downloading and installing? Well, my answer to that will be, yes, absolutely, it's definitely worth it. You've got to be a little careful because there are some shortcomings, which I'm telling you about right here. If you like this sort of content, please consider subscribing to the channel and joining Metatron's Academy. So one good thing about the app is that it's really fun and they make it so it looks like a little game with a reward system and some competition, in the sense that you compete with other users and that can be, motivating for people wanting to, be high on that list. And I thought it was brilliant that they structured it like a MOBA or an RTS, in the sense that we got like leagues with gold and bronze and silver. That's really, really fun. Also, the app pushes you to use it daily. Now, obviously they do it because, that's what all apps do, including mobile games. And in our day and age, MMORPGs, they want you to be on the app as long as possible. But luckily enough, you do want to study a language daily, as I said in my top 10 tips for learning a language. It is quintessential to put daily practice, so the app is pushing you to do it, and in a way, that can be good. One of the main shortcomings of this app is, pronunciation. The recorded voices are too robotic, and depending on the language you're learning, that could be actually bad. In the sense that not all languages are equal on Duolingo. I noticed that their Japanese pronunciation wasn't too bad, but their Mandarin had some serious issues. Duolingo, literally, can you please get the R sound in Mandarin correct? Let me give you an example. One word that they do not pronounce correctly on that app is the word for where in Mandarin, which is nar, nar. Regardless of the actual pitches and tones, which are not bad, although they are kind of surface level, the app pronounces it ner. No one who speaks Mandarin as a first language will ever say ner. It's nar. At least in standard or northern accents. In southern accent, they don't even use the R sound anyways. The Italian pronunciation was very standard. I listened to it, but again, very, very robotic. So don't use Duolingo to learn pronunciation. What about the grammar? For what I've seen, Japanese grammar was pretty good. Mandarin was also good. I didn't have any problems. The only problem I had was with some mistakes that they thought I was making, even though they weren't mistakes at all, but we'll talk about that in the correction section. But in general, the grammar understanding of whoever designed the app is professional, so yes, you will learn good grammar. And the way they teach it is relatively effective in the sense that it's easy to remember because you keep doing the same thing over and over again, but they change the order of factors. So even in the little games and puzzles that you need to come up with to understand this grammar structure, I think they did a good job. So grammar-wise, as a way to learn and improve your grammar, it's good. Maybe not the best, but it's good. With sentence structure, you do have some problems in the sense that I've noticed that as my wife was learning Italian, then she would try and use one of those sentences that she was learning from Duolingo. And sometimes I was like, wow, that's very good. Did you learn that on that? That's great. That's exactly how we say it. But other times I noticed that she said something and I'm like, no one would say that. So even though you can learn a reasonable amount of sentences that you could try and use, you do need to have someone double check it as either a very fluent speaker of the language or a native, which of course will be the best option. Vocabulary retention is probably the best thing about this app. In fact, the only reason why I'm thinking you should totally download it, because I had a great time with it, is because you can learn a lot of vocabulary and the vocabulary on its own is good. But why do I say it's good for vocabulary retention? What's the difference with just vocabulary? Well, vocabulary retention is that thing that allows you to, through a certain structure and puzzles and games that they let you do, because you're exposed to the same words over and over again, and then you see the translation, it's good because it allows you to get those words and stick them in your head, mostly because of the way that it's organized, that it's all puzzle-like and game-like with rewards. So basically learning through exposure, it's a great way to do it, and that's why I think when it comes to both learning vocabulary but most importantly retaining that vocabulary, Duolingo is absolutely worth it. So what's this problem with mistakes and pronunciation? I've noticed that a few times the app has considered a sentence that I wrote as a mistake, even though I knew it wasn't a mistake, it just was a different way to say the same thing. Now, sometimes I notice that maybe it's something that they're patching, because in some exercises, even though you don't exactly do it as they want you to, they still accept it. So they have a range of acceptable answers within a certain exercise that they're working with, but because you're working with an app, so a bot and not an actual real teacher or person, it does happen that sometimes perhaps the person designing that specific exercise didn't think that, oh yeah, you can actually say it that way too, because your answer doesn't fit the exact parameters that they had, which sometimes are too strict. The app will tell you that's a mistake, even though in reality it isn't at all. So all in all, after having considered all of these things, does Duolingo get my check mark of approval? It does get my check mark of approval, mostly because again I've used it for 4 months and I believe I have learned some vocabulary and I've had some good practice, and also because it helped me push myself to make sure to always do the daily thing and the daily challenges. So in a way it's good for achieving daily exposure. But with that being said, you have to consider it that it's not enough on its own. So in other words, don't put 5,000 hours into Duolingo, put some time into Duolingo, but make sure to pair it with watching movies, talking to actual people, watching videos and content on YouTube, and perhaps even attending a class or two. If you use it as an addition, as an add-on, as an extra, then I don't see any reasons why you shouldn't do it, particularly if you enjoy using it. But do not put too much time into the app, because there are many other things that you should absolutely do that would yield a better result. Just use it if you are in one of those moments where you are on the bus, you're in the toilet, you're doing something else, you really don't feel like getting up from bed. Do a little 15 minutes, 20 minutes of Duolingo. That's definitely better than not doing anything. Last but not least, what's something that you can do to improve your experience and your results using the Duolingo app? Well, read out loud. Like, I cannot stress how important this is. I think too many people just do the exercises and click and pick the right things, and then the app speaks and you don't, but then they expect to be able to speak the language. I think one of the most critical things, and I've got almost a decade of experience in teaching, and what I noticed is the best results and the best students are the ones who speak out loud. Because let's face it, none of us who are approaching language learning are doing it because we want to get good at reading or because we want to get good at just watching a video. Great. We all want to be able to speak. We all want to be able to run into a foreigner from said country and have a natural conversation and maybe even impress your friends if that's what you want to do, or in general use it for work or do something, and in general get closer to that culture, be able to go to that country and speak freely, no problem, and then when they speak back you understand and you have a great experience and a great time. That's why you are learning a language, and therefore if you want to learn to do that, and I know you do, then speak. If you read, guess what? You'll get good at reading, and if you listen, you'll get great at listening. But you will not learn how to speak just by pushing buttons and not saying anything. So every sentence, every word that you use, that you see as you use the app, make sure to say it out loud. So what if you are mispronouncing it and no one is there to correct you? Well, that is why I say Duolingo alone might not be enough. It would be great if you could have maybe your teacher, maybe your friend, maybe a classmate to perhaps review pronunciation, or use other websites such as, for example, wordreference.com, which gives you good pronunciation recordings done by natives. You can even select the accent and maybe double check that the pronunciation is correct. Again, on Duolingo you will get pronunciation, but as I was saying, you can't always trust it. So to finish it off, would I recommend Duolingo? Absolutely. You do need to try it. It might not be for you, but you might have a great time and it might push you to work and get more out of your language study. I liked it. I used it for 4 months. I enjoyed it. I think I've learned quite a few things, but I always use it together with other teaching and learning aids. But now let me hear from you. What is your experience in using Duolingo? Did you like it? Did you not? Let me know in the comments. Okay, number ones, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember thumbs up and join Metatron's Academy. Thank you very much for watching, and remember that Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.